Good evening. It's 6 p.m. Today is June 5th, 2025. This is the Planning and Zoning meeting of the City of Boca Raton. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Jamie, please call the roll.
Chair Savelle?
Here.
Mr. Salon?
Here.
Ms. Ritchie?
Here.
Ms. McDermott?
Here.
Mr. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Morgan?
Here.
And Mr. Dornblazer?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, the first item is going to be the minutes of the April 17th meeting. Look for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve.
So seconded.
Any discussion? Changes? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. Okay, I have a request for an amendment to the agenda, and we would like to put item 6A, the quasi-judicial variance, on first. But before we do that, we need the city attorney to explain that procedure.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Chris Fernandez, City Attorney's Office. The rules of the City Council provide that each applicant requesting approval, relief, or other action from the Planning and Zoning Board this evening shall disclose at the commencement or continuance of the public hearing any consideration or payment provided or committed directly or on its behalf for an agreement to support or withhold objection to the requested relief or action. A copy of the quasi-judicial rules governing tonight's public hearing are attached to the agenda and are available from the city clerk.
Thank you. Would anyone who's going to speak on any matter this evening please rise and be sworn in?
Do you swear or affirm any testimony you give at this public hearing will be truthful and accurate? Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, the Walsh residence variance is being presented by Pam Kitchen. Jamie, would you please read that item into the record?
Walsh Residence, 77 Southeast Olive Way. Resolution of the Planning and Zoning Board of the City of Boca Raton, considering for the approximately 0.16 acre property generally located at 77 Southeast Olive Way, a variance from section 28-1579-1 Code of Ordinances to allow a 7-foot rear pool setback in lieu of the required 10-foot rear pool setback, providing for repeal or providing an effective date.
Okay, thank you. Pam, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm Pam Kitchen, a zoning officer, and I'll be presenting the pool setback variance this evening. The property is located at 77 Southeast Olive Way in the single-family R1C zoning district and is within Port Lamar subdivision. The current home was built in 2004 under the building permit number BP 2400001732. A pool and deck were constructed in 2004, complying with the required setbacks. That permit number was BP 0400004991. A new pool permit, BPR 2024-03058, was applied for in December of 2024. The applicant is requesting a variance from Section 28-15791 Code of Ordinances to allow a 7-foot rear pool setback in lieu of the required 10-foot rear setback. Therefore, the applicant is requesting a variance of 3 feet for the rear yard to construct a new swimming pool on the property. The applicant states that no deck is proposed in the area between the edge of the new swimming pool and the rear property line, so a concurrent deck setback variance was not requested, as decks have a setback of 7 feet. The applicant states that unique circumstances exist on the property because of the shape of their lot, which reduces the buildable space for a standard pool. The property is currently developed with a single-family home built in 2004. The current swimming pool and pool deck were also construction in 2004, complying with the required setbacks of 10 feet for the pool and 7 feet for the deck. The applicant argues that the trapezoid shape of their lot significantly restricts the available space for constructing a swimming pool. However, it is important to note there are no special or unique circumstances regarding this property, as the adjacent lots exhibit similar trapezoid lots, shapes, and constraints. Furthermore, the property features a designated rear yard setback of 20 feet for the main building. The rear yard setback aligns with those of other homes with the surrounding neighborhood, all of which fall under R1C zoning district. The 25-foot depth of the rear yard is ample space for the applicant to build a swimming pool while remaining compliant with code regulations, particularly since their existing 15-foot wide swimming pool already meets the code. The proposed swimming pool is located approximately 8 to 10 feet from the structure of the house to the water line of the pool. There is no required setback for a pool from the house in the Florida Building Code. Therefore, there is enough room to locate a pool of a reasonable size in the backyard. Staff recommends denial of this application, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions for staff? Mr. Mitchell?
Just want to clarify something, to make sure I heard it correctly. Is there a setback from the house to the edge of the pool requirement?
Not for the Florida Building Code, no.
And Boca Raton doesn't have any?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, any questions?
No questions.
Ms. McDermott? Okay. Ms. Ritchie? Mr. Dornblaser?
No questions.
Mr. Salon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you know the dimensions of the existing pool?
I don't know what it was. There was, I believe, I thought there was a photo of it. It was similar to the other pools within the area.
Okay, I thought I remembered somewhere in the
It's
report.
15 feet wide. But I
Exactly.
don't know the length of it.
Yeah, I didn't know the length either, but I did see that it was 15 feet wide. And that existing pool meets all the requirements of
Yes.
setbacks
Yes, sir.
without any variances?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kitchen.
Anything else? Okay. Pam, the question I have is, if somebody wanted to build a new pool and they needed 3 feet, they could just move the pool 3 feet closer to the house.
That is correct. That's why we
Okay,
said that with the
without a
25-foot
variance.
setback of the home, they have 25 feet back
Okay.
there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does anyone from the Walsh residence come on? Yeah. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Marissa Smith. I'm here for the Walsh residence. I'm the contractor on the project, and this is Mr. Walsh, the client. So I made a presentation in between when we applied for the pool and the variance. There's a new balcony that's being installed on the rear setback of the house so that it is going 4 feet from the side of the house. So once the balcony and then the corresponding slab and footer for that are installed, it's only going to be about a foot from water's edge of the new pool. So even though building code doesn't require a minimum setback from the side of a house or a side of a foundation to a pool, best practice is 5 foot for structural integrity of the foundation. Florida Building Code also requires 4 feet of wet deck around a pool, and you are allowed a 10% obstruction exception, but it is best practice, again, for safety, accessibility, drainage, and then also structural integrity of the foundation and the slab for the pool and the balcony.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the petitioner, Mr. Salon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you have a 15-foot wide pool now. What's driving you to change that to a 10-foot wide pool?
Yeah, it's
Mr. Walsh, please state your name and address for the record.
Sorry.
Thank
John
you.
Walsh. Some point soon, 77 Southeast Olive Way. I also own another home in town here at 2710 Northwest 27th Street Ave in New Floresta. So I own 2 homes in town here. The current pool is outdated, sir. It's kind of like a bean-shaped pool. It's really quite odd. We're looking to update the home, which we're working and spending a lot of money on right now, and the yard and the pool deck, too. So we're looking to reconfigure the pool, much like my neighbor to my right. As you can probably saw in the aerial shot, he has more of a rectangular-shaped pool, and that's really what we're looking to do, is put that in, and with the balcony, too. That's really it.
Okay, well, thank
Any
you,
other
Mr.
questions, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
My pleasure.
Anyone else have a question? Okay. Seeing none, does anybody else from the, Mr. Morgan?
I just have a quick question. When was it decided to add the deck, that it's not reflected on this?
During permitting for the residential remodel. So that's approved, that's the first, that's the approved site plan that does include the balcony. And I made a couple more slides that shows the difference of the setbacks with the 10-foot versus the 7-foot, and then just the reasoning behind wanting to just shift it back. And customarily, I mean, municipalities down here, usually it's about a 5 to 10-foot setback for pool, the rear setback. So we're still within that range. We're not asking to put it right up against the fence line, just a little bit more space to make it, more, not only aesthetically pleasing, but just easily accessible, safer, best practices all the way around. So if there's room for it.
One other thing I'd like to add, and I don't think it came up, I don't know if you can go to the aerial picture again, that'd be maybe helpful. Right behind us, there was 4 new homes constructed within the last 2 or 3 years, I believe. As you can see, the rear line is diagonal. Now, my neighbor to my right, if you're looking at my house, they're from the Palmetto Park Street, and there's actually an easement about this wide where power lines come down between the homes. So my neighbor to my right, it's his property line ends, there's an easement this wide, and then there's the next person's property line. When it comes to my property, the builder, whoever built the retaining wall into the easement. So typically, my property line would run up, there'd be about this much space, and then there'd be the next neighbor. But that builder built through the easement and put it right up against my property. So my property line, when you get to it, there's a wall this high right there. There's no easement because they built into it. So it's not like you would just walk from my property line into the next neighbor. There's an 8.5-foot wall there that, again, goes into the easement. I don't know why they did that, but they did.
Thank you. Any other questions for the petitioner? Not, this is a public, thank you. This is a public hearing. Does anybody else from the public wish to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion and a second to approve.
So motioned.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I have a question for staff. Do any of these surrounding properties have a variance for their pools?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and is there anything that can be done about the easement issue that the city can help them with?
Well, I don't know, I didn't see it, but an 8-foot fence or wall wouldn't be permitted in the back anyways. The maximum height is 6, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? If not, Jamie, please call the roll.
Mr. Salon?
No.
Oh, Mr. Morgan?
No.
Mr. Dornblaser?
No.
Ms. McDermott?
No.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Ritchie?
No.
And Chair Savelle.
No.
Failed 1 to 6.
Okay. So now we are back to the quasi-judicial public hearings. We'll go to 5A first, which is the Ricketts House Cemetery relocation. Jamie, would you please read that item into the record?
Ricketts House Cemetery relocation, 755 Southwest 3rd Avenue. Resolution of the Planning and Zoning Board of the City of Boca Raton considering for an approximately 24.8-acre property known as the Boca Raton Cemetery and Mausoleum, generally located at 755 Southwest 3rd Avenue. 1, an amendment to an approved site plan, resolution number 01-13, as amended by 2017-006, to authorize the installation of the Ricketts House, which will be relocated from 498 Crawford Boulevard to the Boca Raton Cemetery and Mausoleum, with associated site improvements, including landscaping and hardscape improvements. And 2, a technical deviation from Section 23-190D Code of Ordinances to reduce the driveway width from 24 feet to 20 feet, a reduction of 4 feet. And 3, a variance of Section 28-3431A Code of Ordinances to reduce the front yard setback requirements from 100 feet to 25 feet, 2 inches, a reduction of 74 feet, 10 inches, providing for repeal or providing an effective date.
Did anyone have any ex parte communications on this item? I don't think so. Okay, with that, Jacob, you have the floor.
Good evening, Chair and board members. My name is Jacob Gurman, Planner 2 for the city, and I'll be presenting the Ricketts House relocation project located at 755 Southwest 3rd Ave. The project will redevelop the approximately 24.8-acre property located on the eastern parcel of the Boca Raton Cemetery, that is east of Southwest 4th Ave, north of Southwest 8th Street, west of Southwest 3rd Avenue, and south of the St. Joan of Arc School. The property is zoned single-family residential R1D and has a future land use designation of institutional PI. The applicant is requesting a site plan approval to install the Ricketts House, which will be relocated from 498 Crawford Boulevard to the Boca Raton Cemetery and Mausoleum, including landscaping and hardscaping improvements, together with a variance from Section 28343(1)A Code of Ordinances to allow a reduction in the required front yard setback from 100 feet to 25 feet 2 inches, and a technical deviation from Section 23190D Code of Ordinances for a reduction in driveway width from 24 feet to 20 feet. The Ricketts House was originally constructed in 1939 as the Arvida Real Estate Office Building at 490 East Palmetto Park Road. In 1989, it was relocated from its original location to 498 Crawford Boulevard, where the house served as an office and programming space for the Singing Pines Children's Museum. The Children's Museum has been temporarily closed to the public since 2019. As such, the space has not been operated since. The relocation will preserve the existing Ricketts House by relocating the structure in lieu of demolition. The Ricketts House will be located to the southeastern corner of the cemetery to preserve it. The project has been designed to minimally impact the existing area. Landscaping has been provided around the perimeter of the Ricketts House and the parking lot to minimize the impact of the project on the cemetery and adjacent properties. The landscaping around the Ricketts House includes the installation of 6 bald cypress trees to the west and a combination of wild coffee shrub and a cocoa plum hedge. The landscaping provided around the parking lot includes the installation of 2 live oaks, and 3 silver buttonwoods, and a cocoa plum hedge. The existing lift station will be screened with a podocarpus hedge. If installed at the cemetery, the Ricketts House will continue to be used as an office building, but for the employees in the cemetery and rec services. The diagram above depicts the conditions for the requested variance from Section 23431A. The diagram highlights the provided and required setbacks for the project. It also depicts the area of impact if the project were to comply with the required setbacks. In the R1D zoning district, the minimum front or street setback is 25 feet. However, greater front or street yards are required when a plot of land is in excess of over 2 acres, where the required yard shall be increased by 10 feet for each whole acre of plot area in excess of 2 acres, except in any event a required yard abutting a public street right-of-way need not to exceed 100 feet. The parcel where the project is located consists of 2 plots of land separated by Southwest 4th Ave, which totals approximately 21.3 acres, where an additional 190 feet would be required. However, due to the 100-foot maximum setback limitation, a 100-foot setback is required. If the project were to comply with a 100-foot required setback, then the project would encroach in areas designated for future burial plots and roadway for the cemetery. The requested variance would reduce the front setback from 100 feet to 25 feet 2 inches, a reduction of 74 feet 10 inches. Staff recommends approval of the requested variance. The applicant has also requested 1 technical deviation from Section 23190D to reduce the required driveway width from 24 feet to 20 feet, a reduction of 4 feet for the existing driveway along Southwest 3rd Avenue. This driveway along Southwest 3rd Avenue is considered a minor suburban driveway, which requires 1 12-foot wide ingress and egress lane. The project is proposing to improve the conditions, but to provide a 10-foot wide ingress and egress lane. The Ricketts House will not be operating on a daily basis, and the proposed use will generate very low traffic volume, which the narrower driveway can accommodate under the low volume and low speed conditions. This driveway is located just north of the southern property line and just south of the existing lift station. It cannot be widened without requiring the existing lift station to be relocated. The diagram above is a close-up of the site plan, which further illustrates the existing site constraints and shows the new driveway to be improved to a 20-foot wide driveway. As previously stated, landscaping has been provided to screen the project from its surroundings. There are no traffic concerns from the requested technical deviation due to the proposed use and intensity. Staff supports the requested technical deviation. During the analysis of this application, staff found that the application will preserve the existing Ricketts house by relocating the structure in lieu of demolition. The Ricketts house will continue to be used as an office space for rec services and the cemetery staff at its new location. The application will not impact the existing area of the cemetery. The technical deviation is required as the existing driveway entrance and paved area cannot be widened due to the existing site constraints, and that the variance will allow the relocation to occur without encroaching on areas designated for burial plots or the road for the cemetery. The project was reviewed by the CAB on April 15, 2025, and was recommended approval with conditions in a vote of 4-0. The applicant had made those changes, so there were no additional conditions added into the resolution. Development Service Department recommends approval of the site plan, technical deviation, and variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for staff? Ms. Ritchie?
At the council meeting last Tuesday, they were talking about maybe moving this building over to Meadows Park with tennis courts, and as part of the discussion of the campus plan, downtown campus plan. If we were to approve this tonight, would that impact that option or proposal that Mr. Brown suggested?
So there is a project that is going to the Parks and Rec Board on this upcoming Tuesday for the Singing Pines and Ricketts house.
That one's different, that's
That's
different than
different than
Ricketts,
this
so I
one.
have the buildings mixed up.
It's possible.
Okay.
It's happened.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Dornblaser?
No question.
Mrs. Salon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, did you say that the city staff is going to use this building for their offices, the cemetery staff?
Yes.
Okay.
So it'll be used for, rec service will utilize the building, as well as the cemetery staff.
Good. I'm glad to see it put to use. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mitchell?
No questions.
Ms. McDermott?
No questions.
Mr. Morgan?
No questions.
Okay, I don't have a question. I just hope this is the final resting place of this house. It's been moved before. Okay, with that, I'll ask the applicant to come up and make their presentation. Is there someone here from the architectural firm? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Jess Sowards, architect. Curry Sowards, Jess Sowards, architect with Curry Sowards Aguilar Architects, 185 Northeast 4th Avenue, Delray Beach, Florida. We're in agreement with everything staff has, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have. So I think this is a good solution as we relocate these homes, and I think this is a great site plan, great solution.
Okay, thank you. Don't go away.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for the petitioner? Okay, seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Does anyone else from the public wish to speak on this item? Please. Oh. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Judy Morrow, 13.
Oh,
Okay, swear me in.
Jamie, can you swear this lady in?
Do you swear or affirm any testimony you give at this public hearing will be truthful and accurate?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Judy Morrow. I live at 1305 Northeast 5th Avenue. I've lived here over 35 years. When we moved here, we picked Boca Raton because it had so many beautiful public parks. And where we were coming from was West Hollywood, Miramar. Miramar was a big disappointment because we had 2 children at that time, and there wasn't a public pool. There wasn't. So what I feel is very, very important is that recreational land should not be changed to something that is not recreation. And I've by myself, I've collected 404 petitions to save Boca Raton Tennis Center. And I very much want the city, before they change zoning, to think very, very hard about recreation. We want to be known for having recreation in Boca Raton. Your logo of Boca Raton is live, work, and play. And if you take away our parks and recreation, then you're hurting downtown and play. And the zoning downtown, every single one of my neighbors, I live close to Meisner Park, every single one of my neighbors do not like the overdevelopment, high rises, and now wanting to take away our 10 tennis courts at Boca Raton Tennis Center. So please, before you do any zoning changes, please think about the quality of life that your vote is either contributing to making the quality of life better, or it's not. It's contaminating, making it less things for people to do, okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? If not, I'll close the public hearing and look for a motion and a second for the site plan resolution 5A.
A motion to approve?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
As you said, we hope it's its final resting place in the cemetery.
All right. Okay. Yeah. I'm going on late night TV. This is just a test. Jokes. Jamie, please call the roll.
Okay. Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Mr. Dornblaser?
Yes.
Ms. McDermott?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Ritchie?
Yes.
Chair Savelle?
Yes.
And Mr. Salon?
Yes.
Passed 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, next item is One Town Center. Jamie, there's 2 items on that. There's 5B1 and 5B2. They'll be held contemporaneously and voted on separately. Could you read both items into the record, please?
One Town Center, 1201 North Military Trail. First is an ordinance of the City of Boca Raton considering an amendment to the future land use map of the comprehensive plan by redesignating certain property consisting of approximately 0.7 acres generally located at 5458 Town Center Road and 1 Town Center Road from planned mobility, PM, to conservation, and providing for revisions to the future land use map, providing for repealer, providing an effective date. And 2 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Boca Raton considering for the approximately 18.59 acre property generally located at 5458 Town Center Road and 1 Town Center Road, an amendment and restated site plan approval consolidating Palm Beach County Resolution numbers 76-1168, 88-1210, 89-0711, and 90-1295, and authorizing 1, the reduction of an existing environmental preserve area from 2.1 acres to 0.7 acres, a reduction of 1.4 acres. 2, the creation of a new approximately 0.7 acre preserve area. And 3, installation of new landscape and hardscape improvements, providing for repeal or providing an effective date.
Thank you. Ex parte communications. Mr. Morgan?
Yes, I had a brief conversation with David Millage.
Okay. Ms. McDermott?
I spoke with David and Bonnie.
Right. Mr. Mitchell?
I spoke with David and Bonnie.
David and Bonnie.
None.
Mrs. Lon?
I spoke with Bonnie Miskell.
Okay, I spoke with David Millage and Bonnie Miskell, and I drove past the site 4 times today. Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to Heather Waldstein.
Good evening, I'm Heather Waldstein. I'm Senior Planner with Development Services, and I will be presenting the One Town Center request tonight. The property and site plan are located just east of Town Center Mall and west of North Military Trail. The zoning designation is City CHO, and it has a land use designation of planned mobility. The request before you tonight is a site plan amendment to reduce the existing environmental preserve area from 2.1 acres to 0.70 acres, to create a new approximately 0.7 acre preserve area and install new landscape and hardscape improvements. Concurrently with this request is a request for a future land use map amendment from planned mobility to conservation for the 0.7 acre area, as well as the adoption of a conservation easement for the 0.70 acre preserve. The history of the site plan and property dates back to 1976, when the site plan was approved by the Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners. There have been several site plan amendments following its original adoption that allowed for redesign of the site, increase of building square footage, and inclusion of additional permitted uses on site. The site plan area was annexed to the city in 2003, along with other county properties. And upon annexation, the property was rezoned to the city CHO district, and a future land use designation of planned mobility was adopted. Due to the annexation, the site plan is for the most part guided by the regulations of the 2002 version of the county's ULDC, with limited portions of the city's code of ordinances applying and controlling in the event of conflict with the ULDC. I can go into further detail as needed, but in the interest of time, I'll move on to the next slide, and we can always come back to the regulations. This is the current site plan, and identified in the red outline is the site plan note, which identifies the 2.1 acre preserve area. This graphic is to help visualize the request the board is considering. On the left side of the screen is the existing condition shaded with the lighter green as the 2.1 acre preserve area, and as noted on the site plan. And shaded in the darker green is a drainage easement and dry retention area. To the right of your screen is the proposed new preserve area, and shaded in light green, which is the general location of the existing drainage easement and dry retention area. The concurrent request for the conservation easement and future land use map amendment applies to this new preserve area in the light green. The area of the existing preserve will remain in its current physical condition, but will no longer include the site plan note of preserve area upon approval of this request. As mentioned earlier, this area is within the city CHO zoning district and has a future land use designation of planned mobility. The new preserve area is inclusive of 0.7 acres and will include new vegetation with plantings of pine flatwoods, cypress and grass flatlands, and a flower mix. Staff's analysis, which includes compliance review by several planners and our senior environmental officer, concludes that the existing preserve has been significantly diminished over time. The new preserve will include a diverse ecosystem that the applicant is proposing to install and maintain with biannual monitoring over the next 5 years. Staff finds the project is consistent with goals and objectives of the city's conservation element of the comprehensive plan by restoring natural habitats and preserving upland habitats on private property. The new preserve will be protected by a conservation easement and redesignated as conservation on the future land use map. Staff would like to note that this request was presented to the city's Environmental Advisory Board on May 22nd. And although the EAB voted unanimously to recommend denial of the request, they did offer some suggestions in the event the request is approved. Staff and the applicant have worked to incorporate some of the items or suggestions into the plans that you have before you tonight, including simplifying the proposed site vegetation, replacing some of the some of the trees of the proposed vegetation, and providing short-term irrigation. In addition, other suggestions that were included and have been included, and with the applicant's agreement to conditions such as consultation with the Palm Beach County Cooperative Extension and South Florida Water Management District regarding the acceptable use of an application of pesticides. In addition, a condition was added requiring the applicant to return to the EAB for a courtesy presentation to review the proposed educational signage. This concludes staff's presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Our senior environmental officer is also here and can answer questions relative to the preserve. So that concludes my presentation.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Ritchie, any questions? No. Mr. Dornblaser?
Yes. On that, where it shows future development area, obviously then the applicant can come back, whoever the property owner is, to build a building or something there down the road?
Yes, they can. The area above the light green shaded area, it still maintains its zoning and land use designation.
Thank you.
Mr. Salon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Waldstein, I noticed that there was a notice of violation issued in 2024. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. There was a notice of violation issued regarding the maintenance of the property, and to my knowledge, that notice of violation has been closed. They've complied. The applicant has complied with the requirements, which were to provide a resource management plan for how they were to maintain the existing preserve area. And I can ask the senior environmental officer to provide additional information if you need additional
Well,
information.
yes, I am, or the applicant can help me out with that, because I noticed there's, I think, what, 15 invasive or species, trees that needed to be removed that have not been removed. That's my understanding. Could the
Okay.
environmental officer
I
speak to
believe
that?
the resource management plan does prescribe removal of the exotics.
Right.
So the applicant is here and can expand on that, whether there's a plan to remove them over a certain amount of time or.
Okay, but you said the notice of violation has been closed out
Yes.
as they are in compliance.
They complied with the requirements of the violation, which was to provide a resource management plan.
And also, yes, sir.
Brandon Ch, Development Services Director. So that was the requirement of the notice at the time. So they would need to follow that resource management plan in order to avoid further violations. So if they don't implement the plan that they have submitted and had approved, then they're subject to further code enforcement action.
Okay, I can ask the applicant a little bit more about that. And the Environmental Advisory Board voted 6-0 against it, and they provided some conditions if it were to go forward. But what was their reasoning to vote against it?
The reason to vote against it, and I just want to clarify that it was, there were 4 board members there that night, so it was a 4-0 vote.
Okay, thank you.
And the reasoning behind it was, I believe, the size and location of the preserve. The current or existing preserve is 2.1 acres, and they had some concerns over the reduction in the preserve area to 0.7 acres and its location next to a major roadway and at the southern portion of the property.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much. No more questions.
Okay. Mr. Mitchell?
I do have a question for the environmental expert. Why are they getting rid of the gumbo limbo trees?
Hello, Joshua Bott, Senior Environmental Officer for the City of Boca. That was a condition of the EAB. They felt that they should not be included in the pine flatwoods. They didn't feel it was appropriate. So, as a measure, we thought that that would be fair to remove those out and only add in pines the way they had asked. So that's what we did. Okay. I worked with the applicant to do that.
Thank you.
Anything else? Ms. McDermott? Mr. Morgan?
Just a quick question. If I'm looking at it correctly, the current preserve area minus that drainage easement is about 1 acre. Is that correct?
The current preserve is 2 2.1 acres. So
But there's a drainage easement on there, right, of, what is it, 1.1? Is that correct?
no, on the left side of the screen, the light green shaded area is 2.1 acres, and that's the existing preserve area. The darker green is, you have the drainage easement along North Military, and then the dry retention area to the south.
Okay, and the applicant stated in there that they're going to move the existing trees to remain. Is that they're going to relocate them from the current preserve area to the new preserve area?
I think ultimately, but with this request, they are not changing the existing preserve physically. Right now, it's just a matter of removing the note on the site plan, so all trees in the existing preserve will stay. If the applicant, property owner, decide to come back at a future date, submit an application for development on the area where the existing preserve is, they would have to get a permit to remove any trees or relocate them for that proposed development.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I have an additional question for the environmental officer, Josh. So the current drainage easement is a dry retention area, and it's, what, 5 feet deep?
I think it's maybe 8 feet deep, but I mean, I've not gone into it to actually measure it.
Right, I haven't measured. I've looked at it, but it's, you know, a retention area, like a drainage.
Yes, and we're going to be removing the outflow, the outfall into it as part of the things. The applicant's going to remove the drainage portion that drains into there so that water will no longer collect into it in the way it used to.
And so all those plantings that they show are going to be at the bottom of this retention area, subject to periodic flooding after?
Yes, which
rains?
is why I work with them to pick species that can handle seasonal inundation. That was actually the intent.
And I see from the proposed landscaping, there's no trees, of course, that you could put in the bottom of such a retention area, unless they were maybe cypress.
Yeah, like a cypress or a red maple, but it doesn't ever really hold water very much. Like most of the time, it's always dry because it's sugar sand, so it percolates very quickly down into the water table. So I didn't want to put something that would require a lot of, you know, seasonal inundation versus something that can just handle, you know, infrequent flooding. So that's why we settled on the mix that we did.
It seems a little unnatural to put a pinewood scrubland, you know, down 5 feet.
Well, it's up above. The pine flatwoods is going to be above. The bottom is going to be a wiregrass, like wet flatwood, not flatwoods, wiregrass prairie, essentially.
Well, yeah, milkweed and beauty.
Yeah, there's going to be wildflowers in there as well, and they can handle seasonal inundation for, you know, a day or two. It's not going to kill them.
It seems to me more preferable to have, if you're going to have a preservation area, that you have it up at grade at where all the existing large trees are.
I agree with you personally. I had to review what I was given. This is what the applicant was proposing.
Okay, all right, thank you very much, Josh.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. If not, with that, I'll open the public hearing and ask the applicant to come up and make his presentation.
Good evening, Board. David Millage, for the record, 14 Southeast 4th Street, Boca Raton. I just wanted to thank staff. We've been working on this application with staff for over 2 years now. I think we've been able to develop a good plan, and I'm happy to present it to the Board. So as Ms. Waldstein had mentioned, this property is located just to the east of Town Center Mall on the west side of Military Trail, south of Glades. This is just a aerial pictometry of the existing conditions of the property. You have the main old Tyco building. You have the Medplex in the top left, which is northwest, and then there's a parking garage. The applicant owns the piece that's kind of shaded in blue with the star. Currently, it's improved with a surface parking area and then the vacant land to the south. As Ms. Waldstein had mentioned, there is a history of this project from dating back to 1976. I think the last amendment was late 90s, or it might have been 2000. So we are here just for a site plan amendment request to remove, so let me just go back to this site plan. So this is what the site plan looks like. This is from the county, and the blue is the old Tyco building, and the pink is the Medplex building. What's circled in orange is actually the note that we're seeking to remove, and it just says preserve area, and it refers to the resolution. What we're proposing would be to remove that note and then add the new preserve on this south portion of the property. So as graphically depicted, the existing 2.1 acre preserve is at the northwest portion of this property, and then the relocated preserve will be to the south. Again, this is just showing how this would lay out. We have our existing surface parking lot area, which would be adjacent to a new development area. This would be subject to a separate site plan application, so this will be back in front of this board for approval. This is in city CHO, so there's a lot of different uses that are available based off of the code, and we're still working on the development program. So the existing conditions on the top left is the retention area. And just to answer Mr. Salon's question relating to the grading of the property, would be happy to add a couple extra feet of fill to bring everything up a little bit more. There is plantings along the banks, and then there are some flat areas around the existing retention area. This is the colored site plan rendering of the preserve area. Where you see these white dash marks are actually view corridors that we've opened up. I believe there is, and I'm not a landscape architect, I believe it's Sunshine Mimosa, which is lower to the ground. There's educational signage that will highlight the flora and the fauna of the area, as well as the pine flatwood nature of the city. So as it relates to the preserve, so this preserve was per plat. It was replatted in 1989. So this was reserved by the Property Owners Association. And then in blue, it says that the preserve easements will be preserved and maintained by the owner as long as required by a prior resolution, R89-711, or any subsequent adopted resolution. And actually what's kind of interesting, and we haven't brought it up, and is that there was a subsequent zoning resolution whenever the city only a few years ago rezoned this property from county CHO to city CHO. So there actually is an argument that this preserve was already abandoned a few years ago. But we're here to do the right thing. We're trying to provide a new value for the city. And then one more thing I would like to point out for the plat language is that it was contemplated that this could be developed in the future. As Ms. Wallstein had mentioned, we had a meeting with EAB. They denied the application, however, provided, in my list was 8 different recommendations, of which 7 of those we were able to comply with. We've reached out to Palm Beach County and the Lake Worth Drainage District relating to herbicides. We've removed a previous wet area that the EAB thought that it wasn't practical, so we removed that area. Right now, we've replaced the gumbo limbos and the sable palms with slash pines. We thought that the gumbos and the sables would provide a nice variety and interest to the preserve, so it's up to the board whether or not they think it would be appropriate to keep those species. We added a note to our management plan that allows for prescribed burns, but we know that currently the city fire marshal doesn't allow that in the city, but we did add it in there if it ever is allowable. We revised the management plan to provide temporary irrigations for 5 years to make sure all of the species are established. We're providing a courtesy presentation of the educational signage to EAB. their action isn't required on that matter. And then they had a recommendation relating to construction monitoring, which is just a part of the building permit issuance process. And then they asked for dedicated parking, which we're not proposing. It would add a additional curb cut into Military, as well as this being a passive preserve. I do have a slide to answer Mr. Salon's questions relating to, I'll show you this one real quick. So the blue area is the previous wet area that we were proposing, and now we've removed it. And also, as it relates to elevations, the orange area that you see is actually, was proposed to be additional elevation that would have your slash pines and other palm species. So for the real quick chronology of events, our client acquired the property in 2021. In August of 21, they went in and cleaned up the exotics that were on the site. We had our PAR application in March of 2023, and then a month later, we started getting violations. And as it relates to the violations, the original violation was for two sections of the code. Section 2012, which requires a permit for the alteration of environmentally sensitive lands, which this is not. And then a violation of 28989, which is the applicability section of the city CHO. It's not something that we could actually violate. After arguing these points with city staff, they withdrew those violations and then recited us for 3 new violations: a violation of a condition of a development order, litter, and management of grass clippings or vegetative matter. So those 3 were the alleged violations. Since that time, in the sake of working with the city and being cooperative, we prepared a management plan which was previously accepted by staff and then reneged. And then we revised the management plan, which has now been, again, accepted by staff. We cleaned up the retention area. We've done remedial plantings in the existing preserve. And since then, the city has withdrawn that code violation. Happy to answer any questions. I'm sure that there are from the board, and I can walk through additional slides and explain the complicated history of this project. The big, if you want to call it, selling point for this application is that currently the city has very little of no enforceability relating to the existing preserve. What we're actually providing is not only a new relocated preserve, albeit smaller. The city will have a management plan that they can enforce. They will have a conservation easement that they can enforce, and also a future land use map amendment, which essentially strips the previous entitlements for something that had planned mobility now to conservation, for which 10 to 15 years from now, if anything were to change, they would need a supermajority from the city council to ever change. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the petitioner, Mr. Morgan?
No questions.
Ms. McDermott?
No questions.
Mr. Mitchell?
I just want a gumbo limbo tree, but that's okay.
When nobody's looking, you can plant one. Yeah.
I know. I live down the street. I'll just do it secretly.
Okay. Ms. Ritchie?
No questions.
Mr.
Thank you.
Dornblaser?
Yes. So when I see this, if you're looking to remove that existing preserve note on the original site plan, it essentially is a preserve now. And I know you mentioned that, well, there's an argument that you could develop on it anyway. But then if you could, I wouldn't think you'd be here asking to make this change. And so if we vote this down, then the whole 2.1 acres stays preserve, is the way I'm seeing this. Am I mistaken in what I'm saying?
Based off our analysis of the preserve and based off of the subsequent zoning resolutions for the property, we're of the opinion that it's possible, without further researching case law, to determine that whether or not this preserve exists. We do know for certain that the city has very limited enforceability for this preserve area because, remember, the original code violation was a violation for not getting a permit to do removals. And I can go back to that slide, the amended violations no longer had that requirement because I've argued that the entire Chapter 20 of the city's code isn't applicable for this project, not only from the annexation agreement whenever it was annexed in to require to use the 2002 ULDCs, but also there is a provision, let's see if I have it in here. There is a provision in the code, which is 20-4, that provides that Chapter 20, which is our environmental section, shall not apply to any lands which pursuant to Section 2361 is exempt from the consistency requirements of the city's comprehensive plan. And if you go to 2361, there's separate classifications or exemptions, and this one actually complies with three different sections to be exempt. So we argue that Chapter 20 at all doesn't apply. These aren't environmentally sensitive lands. The city has a very overly broad definition of environmentally sensitive lands, which the city's definition is lands which contain native plant communities or habitat for listed species. So that could be anything. I mean, that could be the parking median just out these doors is environmentally sensitive lands based off their definition, whereas the county has a specific definition because we have to comply with the county's code. This is not environmentally sensitive lands. I think the staff would even agree that based off the county's code, we're not subject to Chapter 20. Again, this application is providing benefit in the sense that the city actually has a stake in the long-term preservation of this new preserve. I don't really know if I answered your question anymore, but.
Okay. Any questions? Not, this is a public hearing? Oh, yeah?
I'd like to say a few words.
I'm sorry, I didn't let you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Millage, when we annexed all those properties from the county into the city, we reassured all of them that they wouldn't have to comply with city development codes, that the codes in effect in Palm Beach County at that time would remain for them in perpetuity. That's correct, right?
Yeah.
We reassured them, you don't have to come to CAB. We're not taking your signs down and making them little tiny guys like that. Whatever the Palm Beach County code had for you at that time, you're going to follow that. So now we are here, you're in the city, but you're still governed by the code. It works both ways. And I'm sure when you first developed that property, your previous clients or whatever, they had a walkthrough with Palm Beach County Environmental, and they said, oh, we're going to protect this area, go through it, and remove all the exotics, and we're going to come back in a year after your CO, and we're going to check it, and you got to give us a plan, and we're going to check it every 5 years. So, I mean, to me, that's what you're held to.
So the Section 28989 provides that properties owned city CHO are governed by the 2002 Palm Beach County Unified Land Development Code. Within that section, 28989, it does carve out different areas of the city's code that is still applicable. It does state that without limit, I don't have it in front of me, but it says without limitation, articles of the ULDC still apply, including one of them was environmental. So that we're complying with the 2002 ULDCs. Was there a management held to potentially a fictitious management plan that may or may not exist and no one has a copy of?
Okay, Mr. Millage. I do know that in 1980, the next year, the property was platted to include 2.11 acre preservation easement of pine flatwoods and 2.5 drainage easement dedicated via the plat in 1989.
I can explain all this.
Okay.
Is this your question, the discrepancies that you see?
Well, it's not necessarily a question. It seems like this is pretty compelling that there is an easement for preservation, and there is a requirement that the totality of the land between the drainage easement and the preservation area remain undeveloped.
So I can explain both of those points. One is that the area that's subject to this request is only a portion of the overall preserve area for this development. There's additional preserves area to the east of the old Tyco building that you can somewhat see a cloud along Military to that corner with Town Center Road. That's additional land area for preserve. That's not subject to this request. That's still being maintained and still exists today. As it relates to the 2.1 acre is only relating to my client's portion of the property. So I couldn't tell you our preserve plus the other preserves on the north side of the property, how many acres that is. We didn't do a sketch and legal description for the rest of the property. We only did it for ours based off of the plat. And then to answer your other question on the 1988 resolution is that, yes, you are correct. In 1988, the county passed a resolution that prohibited development on Track 3, which is my client's property. Interesting enough, and less than 12 months later, they passed a new resolution in 1989 that removed the prohibition on the tract, and then that was the resolution that required the plat that has the reservation on it. It's interesting that the county would flip course in less than 12 months, and it's likely because it was considered a taking to prevent a property owner to develop their site. So in 1989, they passed this new resolution that removed that prohibition on Track 3. It required the plat, and the plat is the 1989 plat that shows the reservation. And what's interesting again about this plat language is that it foresaw that this area could be developed in the future, because why would language like this be negotiated between the developer at the time and the county that would say, hey, this is allowed to be here as long as required, which that's why we're here, absent that other argument I had stated previously. And then it specifically states in that pink area is that if this is no longer required, then it may be developed consistent with the then, which is today's, regulations. So the request isn't novel. The city has done this type of request in the past. They actually did it a few years ago for Lynn University, where their preserve was actually relocated. I don't know if it was a straight one-to-one, but I do know that the city council at that point in time agreed that their preserve pretty much shifted 90 degrees at an angle adjacent to the canal. So our request to relocate isn't something novel or not seen by the city in the past.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Milich.
I appreciate your comments, Mr. Sloan.
Okay. Anybody else on this board? Okay, if not, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this item? Please state your name and address for the record.
Lynn Newberry, 5424 Grand Park Place. I live, as many of us do, right across the street from this property. We were told when we purchased in there that this was a preserve that would not be built on. The gift that they're giving us of 1/3 of that property to be planted and whatever they have planned is really just to prepare for 2/3 of that property, 1.4 acres, to have a 7-story building put there. There is a large sign there with a rendering of this building. If that building is allowed to be constructed there, many of us along Military that are facing Military will lose privacy of our bedrooms, our dining areas, our kitchens, anything above the 2nd floor. We do have a very low wall that goes around our property, but everything else, whoever's in that building will be able to see straight across to us. There will be lights at night, whether they're from the building or whatever other lighting that they have proposed. Also, that intersection is our only entrance and exit to our neighborhood in Fairfield at Boca, is at Lenox. It is already very hard to get out of there. We have had 4 accidents since the beginning of the year right there at that intersection. And if they do build the proposed property, it's not only going to be dangerous for all of us coming and going, but it's also where our school buses pick up and drop off our children. So this whole changing of the preserve, which I think a preserve should be a preserve and preserved, and I was here for the advisory meeting for the environment and do know that they did deny it and did speak at that as well. We were told that that was not going to be built on. And here we are now today, not only going to be built on if the proposal goes through, but a 7-story building. So that is our biggest concern, and we just would like you to consider that that is the reason that they want to build this nice little preserve on 1/3 of the property. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Last call. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'll look for a motion and a second for item 5A1 for the land use map change.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, can I make some clarifications before you vote?
Absolutely.
So there was a lot that Mr. Milich said there, and I'm not going to respond to all of it, but there was a few points that I think should be clarified. One, he said that there was an argument that the preserve was abandoned upon the area being rezoned into the city CHO zoning district. You can argue anything, but it's not a good argument. The development order from the county that was mentioned in the plat has not been amended in a way that would get rid of the preserve. And the argument would, if it gets rid of the preserve, the development itself on the rest of the property becomes illegal. So it's not a good argument. The idea that the city has limited enforceability of the preserve requirement, we also strongly disagree with that. However, I will say that the preserve requirement from the county resolution lacks a certain specificity that we will have if this preserve is approved. We know exactly what's supposed to be there. We will know exactly how it's supposed to be taken care of, and we'll have the ability to enforce that. in a way that we don't have that clarity today with the existing preserve. With respect to the statement that the plat from before contemplated allowing development, I read the language differently. Essentially what it said was it deferred to the zoning approval. And my reading of the purpose of that language was so that if a new zoning approval, a different zoning approval such as we're considering now, would be the vehicle to change the preserve. And it was simply a way not to have to replat also. I think it was just a procedural allowance, not that we think this is going to be developed later. It was just a way to not have to go through extra steps. It was just to make clear what the decision-making mechanism would be, which is the site plan approval process. I do have to also respond to something that Mr. Salon said, essentially that when the city annexed this area, that there was a guarantee in the development or the annexation agreement that the county code requirements would apply in perpetuity. I can't agree with that. That's not what it says. What it said was that upon annexation, the county rules would continue to apply, not necessarily in perpetuity, because the city council retains its legislative authority to make the rules. As with any other part of the city council can pass new ordinances changing the rules. So I just want to make sure that in perpetuity part, I think has to be, made clear. That's not the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brandon. Appreciate the clarification.
Brendan, just to be clear, your staff is recommending approval of this?
We are, yes.
Yes, okay. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Josh, if I may.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on the gumbo limbo sable palms versus slash pines?
I mean, I was fine either way with it. You don't typically find the gumbo limbos so much in a pine flatwoods, and the sables either, because, I mean, the sables you find sometimes. Either way, I mean, it would be fine. There is an existing gumbo limbo in there. There are some existing sable palms that I assume are recruits that popped up, but, I mean, they're not usually found in pine flatwoods from my understanding.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're back to the motion, and just for correction, it's 5B1, not 5A1 for the Florida land use map. Any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Salon?
Yeah. I mean, the way I see it is the applicant's asking us to give up the 2.1 acres of existing preserve, which seem pretty well solidly defined as preserved, and go down into the retention area and maybe regrade that and create from scratch almost, at least from the bottom part, a new preserve. That seems totally inadequate. And I'm in favor of holding on to the plat that the county required, which was a preservation easement for the environmental land and the drainage easement. And if the applicant wants to modify that through some mitigation, if he goes out and buys, a 2-acre parcel somewhere else and says, here, let me build over here and I'll give you this, I'd be glad to open up for that. But the way they presenting it for a reduction of the preservation area, I'm not in favor of.
Okay. I see it as a positive. I see it as an improvement to the property and more control for the city.
May I add something?
Yes.
If I could. Just to clarify, the current preserve is highly degraded. There's very little native vegetation left on it. I'm not alleging lack of maintenance, but through the years, I guess enforcement was not performed and maintenance was not historically. And so now there's very little left in there that was originally there. So the saw palmetto's all gone. Most of the other species are gone as well. It was almost all invasives.
Okay. Thank you.
I would also note, I tend to agree with Mr. Salon that we already have a much larger easement, so if we're or preserve, so we're giving up a larger preserve for a smaller one. Now, I bet it'll be theoretically nicer, but I also agree with the one resident who mentioned that there is a sign, even on Google Earth. You can see the sign talking about a 7-story Class A office coming soon. So there's clearly an intent to put a 7-story office on if we allow this.
That's a whole other issue. It's not in front of us
I
tonight.
agree.
Yeah, okay. Ms. Ritchie?
I just have a concern with the specificity that Mr. Shad mentioned. We're cleaning that up, and I would have a concern if we don't move forward, how we would clean that up if we weren't working and collaborating with the developer here on this issue.
It's a very visible piece of land. Yeah. Okay, anybody else? No? Jamie, call the roll.
Mr. Dornblaser?
No.
Ms. McNairmid?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Ritchie?
Yes.
Chair Savelle?
Yes.
Mr. Salon?
No.
And Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Passed 5-2.
Okay. The next part of that is 5B2. That is the site plan resolution. Look for a motion and a second.
So motioned.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Okay. Jamie, please call the roll.
Ms. McNairmid?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Ritchie?
Yes.
Chair Savelle?
Yes.
Mr. Salon?
No.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
And Mr. Dornblaser?
No.
Passed 5-2.
Okay. Mr. Mitchell, if you like, I have 3 gumbo limbos behind my house. You can come visit them. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Next item on the agenda is 5C, the Yamato Crossing. Jamie, would you read that item into the record?
Yamato Crossing, 202 West Yamato Road. An ordinance of the City of Boca Raton considering for the approximately 4.06 acre property generally located at 202 West Yamato Road, an amendment to an approved universal conditional rezoning ordinance, ordinance number 4500, to delete a restriction that prohibits freestanding restaurant buildings with drive-throughs, providing for repeal or providing an effective date.
Okay, thank you. Any ex parte on this one? Anybody? No, I didn't have any either, although I did visit the site. Okay, with that, I will turn it over to Heather Hansen.
Thank you.
Our other Heather.
Yes, the other
Yeah.
Heather. The first Heather. Good evening, Chairman and board members. For the record, my name is Heather Hansen, and I have been sworn. The property is located at the southwest corner of West Yamato Road and Northwest 2nd Avenue, and it's Zone B4, General Business. The development of the Yamato Crossing Commercial Center was approved in 2000 when the City Council adopted Ordinance 4500. At that time, some nearby residents raised concern about the development of the property with a drive-through restaurant, mainly related to concerns about potential traffic impacts. To address the neighbors' concerns at that time, the applicant proposed a bank with drive-throughs instead of a restaurant. And a condition of approval prohibiting freestanding restaurants with drive-throughs was added to the ordinance. The retail buildings were constructed, and those are the I don't know if you've been to this, the retail buildings here were constructed, but not the bank. So for 25 years, that portion there where you see the red star of the property has remained undeveloped. Since Ordinance 4500 was approved, there have been significant roadway improvements completed in the area surrounding Yamato Crossing that have enhanced the capacity of the roadways, such as additional turn lanes on West Yamato Road and Northwest 2nd Avenue, and an additional through lane on the north approach to the intersection of Northwest 2nd Avenue and West Yamato Road. And as demonstrated by the current traffic study, if a restaurant with drive-throughs is constructed on that undeveloped portion of the property, it will meet the traffic performance standards of Palm Beach County, and the project is not expected to have significant impact on non-municipal roadways or intersections. The applicant has indicated that drive-through restaurant chains remain interested in this location. Therefore, the applicant is requesting the removal of the aforementioned restrictive condition of approval. There are no physical changes to the property being proposed at this time, but if and when they do want to place a drive-through restaurant on the property, it will require them to come back with a site plan amendment. A drive-through restaurant is a permitted use in the B4 zoning district. There have been significant roadway improvements, as I mentioned, that have enhanced the capacity of roadways in that area, and the traffic study indicates the drive-through restaurant in that location meets traffic performance standards. And staff feel the application is reasonable and appropriate and consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. Therefore, the Development Services Department recommends approval of the rezoning ordinance amendment, subject to conditions set forth. And that's the completion of my
Thank you.
presentation.
Questions for staff? Mr. Mitchell?
None.
Ms. McDermott?
No.
Mr. Morgan?
None.
Ms. Ritchie?
Nope.
Mr. Dornblaser?
No.
Mr. Salon? Chair has no questions. With that, I'll open the public hearing and ask the petitioner to come up. Please state your name and address for the record.
Diana Barr of 4761 Northwest 2nd Avenue, Boca Raton. Thank you for the opportunity to have a voice in this. 25 years ago was nothing like what it is now in terms of density in that area. There is now an exit from 95 on Yamato. I drive home every day on Yamato to 2nd Avenue. It's so challenging now to drive that way. There's the Yamato Village, there's the exit from 95.
Excuse me, are you representing the project?
No, no,
Oh, no,
sir.
then-
I thought you called for the public.
No, the petitioner.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No problem. You'll have your turn. You'll have your full 3 minutes.
I apologize.
No problem. Mr. Vanderklu, you
Good
should
evening,
stand
all.
your ground.
Yeah. For the record, my name is Derek Vanderplug. My address is 400 South Dixie Highway in Boca Raton, Suite 220. And this is a little bit like deja vu. Originally, I believe the property was zoned PO&I, and one of the reasons for the condition that it was a UC, a Universal Conditional Approval, to make that change 25 years ago. And a man named Greg Talbot, the late Greg Talbot, was the developer for this project. And in order to get that accomplished, many of the people in Boca Chica at the time didn't want a McDonald's at that time. Since then, McDonald's is obviously on the other side of I-95. But nonetheless, the condition has held all these years. And I believe Mr. Talbot had an interest in one of the, it was either Legacy Bank or one of the other banks, that was going to put a true drive-through window, 3,500 square foot bank facility there. Obviously, since that time, nothing has happened, and as you know, the banking industry has changed, especially as it relates to drive-through facilities almost in general. So what my client is, the applicant, is trying to do is to create the atmosphere for an opportunity for whether it be a Starbucks or a fast food or almost anything in that genre, as well as the regular uses, but to put it back into the marketplace so something could be developed on this parcel that has been vacant all of this time. And so that's the reason for the petition. And as Heather said, that whatever use, and it will probably be some form of fast food or Starbucks or the like, we'll have to come back with a separate site plan with all of the details and so forth. As it relates to traffic, our traffic engineer, John Donaldson, is here to answer any questions you might have. But in many ways, you're taking two drive-throughs away and creating one, and perhaps, and in the other improvements that have occurred, some of which were created by this project 25 years ago. We've fulfilled all of those conditions and then some. And so if you have any questions, please feel free.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Vanderploeg? Mr. Ritchie? Mr. Dornblaser? Mrs. Salon? Mr. Mitchell? Mr. McDermott? Mr. Morgan? You're off the hook.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, this is a public hearing. This
Good
lady
seeing
is
you all
like-
again.
Yeah. It's It's your turn. Please restate your name and address for the record.
Sure. Diana Barr, 4761 Northwest 2nd Avenue in Boca Raton. So the 25 years ago that they said that this was going to be too much traffic, since then, as I was saying, 95 lets out right there. When you're coming home up 95, there's tons of traffic coming through. There's the fire station there. There's Yamato Villas. And trying to turn, and you're going to add right at that corner, if you go to check it out, a Starbucks or someplace that people are going to be coming, just turning in off Yamato, the traffic is going to be horrendous. That's the accident that happened on Military and by the Polo Club. People turning suddenly when other people are doing 45 miles an hour is not a good place to have a drive-in restaurant. The traffic there is just, you have to go by and see it. It's so fast, people coming through, then you add people suddenly braking to turn, it's going to be disastrous. Sometimes I can't even make that right onto 4th Avenue. I have to go up to 2nd Avenue and circle around because the traffic is coming so quickly. So I think that this is something that everyone really needs to consider, is that what is it going to do to the oncoming traffic and the chance of more accidents. Another note is that it's going to change the atmosphere. It's a very residential area. There are homes, if you look back on that map, that their bedrooms are right there. Happen to live in one of those. The lights of the restaurant will be right in the parking lot behind the apartments, so that the traffic at night, the lights, it's going to totally change the residential area, which is why I believe it was approved for a bank, because it's not nighttime, it's not lots of neon lights. When you start changing a residential area into a drive-in food right in your backyard, imagine in your back room, in your bedroom, all of a sudden you had even a Starbucks, but it could be any kind of restaurant driving through. So I think this is something also to consider, the change in the residential area and how it's going to affect the people who live right there. And I ask you to please don't rezone it for drive-in food. Leave it. It's a shopping area, but not to make both the traffic change and the atmosphere change for the people who live in the residential area. Any questions?
No. Thank you for your
Thank
comments. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion in a second for 5C. So, you come up if you want to. Okay. Did you fill out a card? You can do it on your way out. Yeah. Okay. Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name's Alex Levin. I live at 4801 Northwest 2nd Avenue, apartment 102. And I actually live in one of the townhomes that's adjacent to the area that is part of the discussion. And I guess the only thing that I wanted to point out is that, at night, typically when we want to go to sleep, we have, many people that live in those adjacent areas. I was comparing this to other areas, as a gentleman mentioned earlier, where there are, fast food places like McDonald's on the other side of 95. I think over there's what's called like a commercial buffer. So there is commercial establishments for the other fast food areas in East Boca or in Boca. However, they have more of a commercial buffer between the properties. For us, like, we hear everything. So unfortunately, there have been many different accidents we've heard and seen and so forth. So there are very few establishments that are open late at night in Boca Raton. On the road that the other fast food establishments are located, it's enough distance away from homes that it's not going to disturb them late at night. So that is, I guess, my personal primary concern, is that there's not enough commercial buffer to allow this to type of establishment. I think anybody in the community would be happy for another store, another, maybe a bank like the gentleman was mentioning before, but to have some kind of establishment that's going to produce additional noise at night for the adjacent residents. You have residents on both sides of the street that the diagram was showing earlier. So I think that that's just kind of the main point of concern, is having the disturbance into the night, and then also the traffic concern as well. As I actually know somebody personally who's gotten into an accident right in that location, coming off of the 95 onto Yamato. So that could also produce, some traffic concerns. But personally, it's just, I'm thinking that for the residents that live in that area, speaking on their behalf, I actually didn't want to speak. But I do feel it's necessary for somebody to, to point out the additional points that it really isn't a sufficient buffer for a property like that, or that type of a establishment that's going to produce additional traffic at nighttime. So,
Thank you for your comments. Okay, anyone else? Last call, public hearing is closed. So we're back to the motion and a second on this one for discussion.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
So seconded.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Heather, please call the roll.
Mr. Mitchell?
Approved.
Ms. Ritchie?
Yes.
Chair Saval?
Yes.
Mr. Salon?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Mr. Dornblaser?
Yes.
And Ms. McNearman?
Yes.
Passed 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Next item is 900 Broken Sound Residential. Jamie, there are two items there. There's 5D1 and 5D2. Could you read them into the record? And they will be held contemporaneously.
900 Broken Sound Residential, 900 Northwest Broken Sound Parkway. The first is a resolution of the City of Boca Raton considering an amendment to an approved phased planned mobility development, PMD Master Plan, Resolution Number 56-2014, as amended by Resolution Number 90-2016, to one, amend the phase lines such that an existing approximately 116,316 square foot office building is located in Phase 2 rather than in Phase 1, and two, to amend the tabular data for Phase 1 to reflect the as-built development, and three, to authorize the construction of a 7-story, 289-unit multifamily residential building, a parking structure, and related site improvements as Phase 2 of the master plan for the properties generally located at 850 Northwest Broken Sound Parkway, Phase 1, and 900 Northwest Broken Sound Parkway for Phase 2, providing for repeal or providing an effective date. And two is a resolution of the City of Boca Raton considering an amendment to an approved site plan, Resolution Number 57-2014, as amended by Resolution Number 91-2016, for commercial, industrial, multifamily development, CIMD, to authorize construction in Phase 2 of a planned mobility development, PMD, master plan, a new 7-story, 289-unit multifamily residential building, including 10% affordable and 5% workforce housing units, a parking structure and related site improvements, together with one technical deviation from Section 23-190D2 Code of Ordinances to reduce the required driveway reservoir distance for the easternmost driveway on Northwest Broken Sound Parkway from 100 feet to 70 feet for the property generally located at 850 and 900 Northwest Broken Sound Parkway, providing for repeal or providing an effective date.
Thank you. Any ex parte on this one? Mr. Morgan? Did you speak to anyone? Mr. McDermott? Mr. Mitchell?
None.
No?
I spoke with Bonnie Miskell about this.
I spoke with Bonnie Miskell as well and visited the site. With that, Owen, you can make your presentation.
Thanks, Chair, and good evening, Board. My name is Owen Devlin, Senior Planner with Development Services here at the City of Boca Raton. I'm here to present a request for a master plan and site plan amendment, which includes a technical deviation from the City Code of Ordinances for the properties located at 850 and 900 Northwest Broken Sound Parkway. The approximately 30-acre property is located on Northeast Broken Sound Parkway, just west of Congress, as can be seen on the map. The project is divided into two phases. Phase 1 to the south, which has an address of 850 Northwest Broken Sound Parkway, and Phase 2 to the north, which has the 900 Northwest Broken Sound Parkway. The property is owned Light Industrial and Resale Park, LIRP, with a future land use designation of planned mobility. The applicant is requesting to amend the approved planned mobility development, a PMD master plan, and a previously approved site plan to construct a commercial, industrial, multifamily development also known as a CIMD, on Phase 2 of the plan. The approval would authorize the construction of a 7-story, 289-unit multifamily residential building, together with a technical deviation to reduce the required driveway reservoir distance for the easternmost driveway on Northwest Broken Sound. The CIMD project will include 29 affordable housing units and 15 workforce housing units. Some general history for the site. On January 21st, 1988, the Planning and Zoning Board adopted resolution number 8805, which granted site plan approval to authorize the construction of the existing office building on site, which was referred to as the Siemens Building. On June 10th, 2024, the City Council adopted resolution number 56, 2014 and 57, 2014, which approved the two-phase PMD master plan and amended the previous office building site plan. Phase 1 consisted of the existing office building together with a new 370-unit multifamily residential development, which was constructed, and it also authorized the construction in Phase 2 of 2 additional office buildings and a parking structure, which were never completed. On September 13th, 2016, the City Council adopted resolution number 90, 2016 and 91, 2016, which modified certain conditions of approval related to the PMD master plan and matrix, related to solid waste and the matrix. No physical changes was made to the plans at this, as part of this amendment. Then on December 10th, 2019, the City Council adopted resolution number 156 and 157, 2019, amending the PMD master plan and site plan to create a new Phase 3 from a portion of the existing Phase 2. The application authorized the construction of a 7-story, 124-room hotel in the reshaping of Phase 2 and a 5-story, approximately 75,000 square foot office building with a dedicated parking structure in a new Phase 3. However, the improvements authorized were never constructed, and both resolutions number 156 and 157, 2019 have subsequently expired. The proposed master plan, which consists of 2 phases, is displayed on screen. Phase 1, which includes the 374 residential units, has been completed. Phase 2, if approved, will consist of a proposed CIMD. Each phase can function as its own standalone development, with the overall master plan aligned with the intended purpose of a PMD, which is to encourage multi-mixed-use land use patterns that support and enhance the city's non-residential employment centres, and are characterized by pedestrian-oriented site design. The second request is that the applicant is proposing to construct the construction of a 7-story, 289-unit multifamily residential building, which will encompass 10% or 29 affordable housing units, as well as an additional 5% or 15% workforce housing units, along with a standalone parking structure. The multifamily residential building will feature a variety of amenities, which include a clubhouse, lobby/lounge, co-working space, swimming pool, dog park, and pet spa. Furthermore, we'll also incorporate a fitness centre on the first floor, which will be accessible to the general public. The site has been designed to enhance pedestrian mobility on site, providing walkways connecting to the existing office building and cross-access to the residential developments located to the east and south, as well as pedestrian access to the existing lake walkway. Additional seating and pedestrian lighting had been integrated along the existing walkways within the property. The final request is as part of the site plan. The applicant is requesting one technical deviation from section 23, 190D2 Code of Ordinance to reduce the required driveway reservoir distance for the easternmost major suburban driveway from 100 feet to 70 feet. The black arrow on the screen represents the 70 feet. This driveway was approved as part of the previous master plan. In this application, the driveway has been reclassified from an intermediate driveway to a major suburban driveway. The driveway connects to a local road within the industrial park and experiences relatively low traffic volume. The operational analysis indicates that there are no significant delays or queues, so therefore city staff support this technical deviation. For your reference, I've included elevations on screen. From the top down is the south elevation, the west elevation in the center, and the north elevation on the bottom. A general overview of staff's analysis. The PMD master plan aligns with the intended purpose of a PMD. Phase 2 meets the I'll skip that word. The requirements and development standards for the CIMD. The project will continue to meet all PMD requirements, including all PMD matrix requirements. The project will provide an additional 289 dwelling units, 29 of which I mentioned will be affordable and 15 will be workforce housing units. The project is consistent and compatible with the adjacent land uses. The project, as designed, also supports goals and objectives and policies in the comp plan, and the project complies with all other code requirements except for the one mentioned regarding the driveway reservoir. The Phase 2 site plan went before the Community Appearance Board on December 3rd, 2024. CAB recommended approval with certain modification requirements that are summarised as followed. Enhance the landscaping around the proposed parking structure to provide better screening and ensure that there will be no light spillage from the structure. The applicant has provided additional landscaping and replaced certain tree species with those that will provide more screening. The CAB also suggested grey for the colour of the glass and a dark bronze for the railing, which the applicant has accepted and included on their elevations. Nearly there. The Development Service Department recommends approval of the PMD Master Plan Amendment, the CIMD Site Plan, and the Technical Deviation, subject to the conditions set forth in the accommodating resolution. And that is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Devlin. Mr. Salon, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Devlin, does the existing office building participate in the shuttle system as a contributor?
Yes, there is a contribution to the plan. I can pull up the exact number if you need it.
Is this contribution for the new development?
So I presume you're talking about the TDM program, which the existing development pays a little over $29,000 a year. The proposed development will pay $31,000. The proposed development is including the office building, the existing office building. After talking to the traffic engineer, or the city staff traffic engineer, they have been underpaying on the previous one, which was a mistake on their behalf. So that $29,000 should have been higher. Now that the office building is coming into Phase 2, it's going to be accounted for in Phase 2.
Oh, so you get a second bite at the apple.
Yeah, they got a discount for a couple of years.
That's good. I'm glad to see that the workforce housing and affordable housing components are going to get free access to the shuttle, which will take them to Tri-Rail. That's super great. I applaud that. Thank you.
Mr. Dornblaser?
No questions.
Ms. Ritchie? No questions. Mr. Morgan?
No questions.
Ms. McDermott?
No questions.
Mr. Mitchell?
No questions.
You guys are easy tonight. The chair has no questions. With that, I'll ask the petitioner to come up. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Thompson. I'm with the law firm Miskell Backman, 14 Southeast 4th Street in Boca Raton. We are here today on behalf of the applicant, who's here as well as our entire development team. I think Owen did a beautiful job summarizing the project and the property's history, but we are here, all of us, to answer any questions you may have. We have a presentation prepared and more than happy to give it. But if you have any questions, we can go ahead with that and start there.
Well, does anybody want to see the second presentation? No, we're good. Any questions for the petitioner? Wow.
You guys make my job easy.
You did such a great job tonight.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. Okay. This is a public hearing. Is anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? Last call? No. All good. Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing and look for a motion and a second on 5D1, the PMD amendment.
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? No. With that, Jamie, please call the roll.
Ms. Ritchie?
Yes.
Chair Savelle?
Yes?
Mr. Salon?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Mr. Dornblazer?
Yes.
Ms. McDermott?
Yes.
And Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Passed 7-0.
Okay, next part of that is 5D2, which is the site plan amendment. Look for a motion and a second.
So motioned.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Okay. No. Jamie, please call the roll.
Chair Savelle?
Yes?
Mr. Salon?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Mr. Dornblazer?
Yes.
Ms. McDermott?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
And Ms. Ritchie?
Yes.
Passed 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay. The last item is a regular public hearing regarding ordinance 4035, conversion from sub-area D and G. Jamie, would you please read that item into the record?
Sorry. Ordinance number 4035, office conversions in sub-areas D and G. An ordinance of the City of Boca Raton, amending ordinance number 4035, the Boca Raton Downtown Development of Regional Impact, DDRI Development Order, as amended to provide that the office allocation in downtown sub-area D and downtown sub-area G may, by conversion only, be reduced by up to 90%, providing for severability, providing for repealer, providing an effective date.
Okay. With that, I will turn the floor over to Arlene Cheese Nelson.
Good night, board members, chair and board members. My name is Arlene Cheese Nelson, DDRI Planning Analyst. Before you tonight is a text amendment ordinance, amending ordinance number 4035 to authorize reduction of the original allocation of office use in subareas D and G up to 90% for conversions only. The Boca Raton Downtown Development of Regional Impact was first approved in 1988. It was amended by ordinance number 4035, which, as amended, is known as the Downtown Development of Regional Impact Development Order, or DDRI Development Order. Development under the DDRI Development Order is controlled by office equivalent development. The DDRI is divided into 7 sub-areas as shown on the map, with each sub-area allocated a maximum amount of development for assigned uses. Using the conversion factors in the development order, uses allocated within a sub-area can be transferred to other sub-areas or converted to other uses within the same sub-area. The DDRI development order also includes a limitation on the amount that can be converted or transferred out of its sub-area. Currently, that limitation is 50%, except in sub-area E, where the limitation is 90% for office use only. Today, 941,922 square feet of office equivalent development is available for redevelopment within the DDRI, of which 512,607 square feet of office equivalent can only be used for office use due to the maximum reductions for each sub-area as follows. In sub-area A, there is 80,776, D, 324,381, E, 35,173, and G, 72,277 of the 130,000 square feet of office equivalent development currently available in that area. Approval of this ordinance would provide the potential for office use in sub-areas D and G to be reduced up to 90% instead of 50%. This would allow the office use currently available in both sub-areas to be converted to other uses in their respective sub-areas, 324,381 in D and 104,130 in G, as shown on the slide. 115,949 square feet of office equivalent development will still be available in sub-areas A, which has 80,776 square feet of OEs, and E, 35,173, that can only be used for office use. This amendment does not mandate conversions, but provides the option to adapt projects to market demands when office use may not be in demand. If approved, ordinance number 4035 would be amended as shown on the slide with language allowing conversions up to 90% in subareas D and subarea G. Staff recommends this approval, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Ms. Nelson? Mr. Morgan? Ms. McDermott? Mr. Mitchell? Ms. Ritchie? Mr. Dornblaser? Mr. Salon? Chair has no questions. With that, I will ask the petitioner to come up after her late arrival.
I was here outside, Ellie Zacharias, Miskell Backman, 14 Southeast 4th Street. I have met with each one of you, and so typically I would spare you the presentation, but I do think this is a really important topic, so if you'll just indulge me for a few minutes, I'll go as quickly as I can. So I'm not here today, as I usually am, with a sexy new development for our downtown, but I will tell you that this is way more important than any one particular building. So let me just start with some history. So in the 80s, there was a few gentlemen who got together and realized that there was significant slum and blight in our city and that something needed to be done. The wheels started turning and ultimately resulted in the Ordinance 4035, which is our downtown Bible, and that was adopted in 1992. And at the time of adoption, the years that it took, almost a decade of thinking about it and doing studies and the like, there were traffic concurrency studies done, water impacts, sewer impacts, everything that was done. The number that is before you, the 8 million square feet number, did not come out of thin air, but rather it was a result of what our downtown could withstand. So that's our umbrella. You have Ordinance 4035, and then you have that 8 million square feet of development. From there, they took that 8 million and divided it in two categories. And as you can see, office was allocated 3.2 million, retail 1 million, and so on and so forth. Okay, and then from there, so you have the 8 million, then you broke it down by uses, and then what they did was divvy it up into the 7 different sub-areas that make up our downtown. And I'm not going to read it, but what's on the screen is just an example, and that is what sub-area D, as in David, received as their allocation. So if it wasn't confusing enough, then from there, every sub-area got their allocation, and they got their allocations by uses. Then Ordinance 4035 allows for conversions from one use to another, and they also allow transfers from one sub-area to another sub-area. However, there is a 50% limitation on any and all conversions and/or transfers. And by that I mean, and by way of example, because I'm not good at math, if sub-area E was allocated 1 million square feet of office, they can only ever convert and/or transfer 500,000 square feet, and that's 50%. So there will always be 500,000 square feet, the remaining 50%, in a bucket that can only be used in that sub-area and only used for office. So with that, I can't remember what year, but in sub-area E, all the sub-areas had that 50% limitation, but sub-area E came in for an amendment, which is via Meisner and the Mandarin. They came in for an amendment years ago in order to make way for that development and asked that the conversion amount be increased from 50% to 90%. So that is pretty much almost exactly what we are asking for today. The precedent has already been set. We are not reinventing the wheel. These are all of the sub-areas, just to give you a reference. As you can see, sub-area E is on the southeast corner, really Camino Real and Federal Highway. That is the one that already has that 90% allocation. We are focusing today on sub-area D and sub-area G. Okay, and this is my last history slide. I also think it's important tonight to note that the powers that be, including Mr. Seaman and Mr. Camejo and Mr. Brown and the like, everybody envisioned that when they were envisioning the downtown, everybody assumed we were going to be built predominantly as an office park. Clearly, that is not what has happened. While a mix of uses is required for a vibrancy of our downtown, predominantly office is lights out at 5 o'clock. So that doesn't create that vibrancy. So I personally am very thankful that we've pivoted a little bit. Yes, office is still necessary, but that mix of uses is what creates that vibrancy. But more importantly, because we pivoted from a predominantly office park to a more true mix of uses, the traffic that we anticipated was going to happen has been at least 20% less than what was originally anticipated. So that is good news for all of us that love our downtown and live in our downtown. So at the end of the day, while we have all of these OEs, and I'm going to go through each sub area rather quickly, but while we have all of these OEs left in this bucket, the point of this entire exercise is there's pretty much no more OEs left for conversion and or transfer. So almost everything that is left in our downtown can only be built in that sub area and built as office. Now, the reason we focus solely on sub area D and G is because there's really only 3 sub areas remaining that have a big enough office bucket to make a difference. And that is A, D as in David, and G. We are not touching A because A is the government center. So we're not touching that. So we're looking solely at D and G. Okay, so this is sub-area A. So typically when you get an update from staff about how many OEs are remaining in each sub-area, this is what you would see. Office at 80,000, retail at 1,000, and institutional at 60,000. But when you take into consideration the 50% rule, what happens is none of that office is available for conversion and or transfer. So that 80,000 must stay in sub-area A and must be built as office. Similarly, institutional is reduced. So what you have on the screen right now, that is what is available in sub-area A for transfer and conversion. In sub-area B, what you see on the screen is all available for the small amount that's there. I mean, we're talking about 1,500 square feet of retail high. But all of that is, in fact, available for transfer and conversion. Similarly, in sub-area C, the whopping 2,300 square feet of office and 5 dwelling units are available to be developed as is or for transfer and or conversion. Sub-area D. So again, we focused on D and G because of the vast size of the office square footage. As you can see, there's 324,000 square feet in sub-area D. But when you apply the 50% rule, there is 0 available for conversion and or transfer. Sub-area E, very similar. There is no office left in sub-area E for conversion and or transfer. Sub-area E, F, this is not a typo. There is nothing left, period, nothing at all. And sub-area G, which is our second point for our text amendment, has 104,000, and with the 50% rule, that gets reduced to 31,000. So while we do have a bucket of OEs available, we also have the 50% rule, which limits it, and then we have projects in the pipeline. I am going to focus on 2 only because they are deemed final and will be before you this summer for hearings. So I'm focusing just on these 2. Meisner Plaza, which is such an amazing project. I'm super excited about it. Once that gets approved, fingers crossed, The remaining OEs that would be available for transfer and/or conversion equates to 585 residential units that are left. That's it. Then you're going to have very soon before you Modera. Modera is 306 residential units. The architect did such a phenomenal job. But you take the 585 after Meisner, and then you subtract the 306 after Modera, we have 279 residential units remaining. That is one residential development. We are one residential development away from a de facto moratorium. I don't think that there's anybody on this board, quite frankly, I don't think there's anybody that loves our city that wants to see our downtown stay stagnant. When you stay stagnant, we die. I mean, that's just our reality. And having a de facto moratorium is exactly that. There would be no development, no changes in our downtown. So what are we proposing? First and foremost, this is just a Band-Aid. I want to say I want to scream it from the rooftops. This is a Band-Aid to avoid a de facto moratorium. This is not an Ordinance 4035 fix. The city has been talking about rewriting 4035 for a very long time. I personally cannot wait to see that, but I'm just trying to put Band-Aid on a very large wound while we're waiting for that rewrite. So again, we're not recreating the wheel. Sub-area E has already availed themselves of this text amendment. We are just following suit. And if you recommend approval and the City Council and CRA ultimately approve it, that would release an additional 1,000 units, 1,027, or 144,000 square feet of retail, or a big mixture of those combinations, right? But it gives some flexibility for developers to build something other than office. Okay, so I think this is one of my last slides. I want to make it very clear, what we're proposing is the ability to convert and/or transfer. It does not mandate it. So if somebody wanted to come in, and Aledo just recently got approval, they're building an office building. If somebody wanted to come in and build an office building in that sub-area, this text amendment would not prevent that. They can still go ahead with and utilize those OEs for office. It just allows the flexibility to have other uses as well. I hope that makes sense. Okay. And then even with our 90% request, there's still 116,000 square feet that will forever have to be office because we're not going to that 100%. And that's it. I hope I was brief enough.
Okay.
And John Donaldson is here as well to answer any questions you all may have.
Poor Mr. Donaldson didn't get to speak at all tonight.
I know, he's very upset about that.
Yeah. Questions for the petitioner? Mr. Salon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for John Donaldson. Could he approach, please?
John Donaldson, 12773 Forest Hill Boulevard, Wellington. Yes, sir.
Mr. Donaldson, glad to see you tonight.
Yes, sir.
If we approve this, is that this ability to transfer from office to residential or high retail, is that going to affect our traffic negatively?
No, actually what it will do is actually decrease the overall traffic. With the residential in there, even with retail and restaurant in there, you're going to get more of a synergy. You're going to have more internal capture than just with an office. Plus, with office, you have that heavy inbound, heavy outbound, and then the residential is exactly the opposite of that. So during the AM and the PM, the flows are contradictory to each other, so it's a much better flow for the downtown. It impacts traffic a lot less.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Donaldson.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Stormbuzzer? Mr. Ritchie? Mr. Mitchell?
No questions.
Ms. McDermott? Mr. Morgan?
I just have a quick question out of curiosity. Why is it to 90% and not 100%? Just totally curious on that.
The previous one was 90%. I mean, in fact, If you said 100 or 90, it's the same number because it's already come down. So the 90% is actually, we would take out the remaining OEs in that sub-area. So we just try to keep it consistent with that sub-area E amendment, I believe.
But I'll take 100% if you want to give it to me.
This is a math test. Don't be greedy.
I will say, though, for the record, sub-area E, when they did their amendment, they asked for 90% from the original allocation. If memory serves, we're doing 90 from what is left, which is a much smaller number than what sub-area E got. No?
I hate to contradict.
Oh, sorry.
I hate to contradict you. We are asking for 90% of the original.
Oh, we did? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, we did change that. That wasn't our original ask, but we did go back to that. I apologize.
Are you two done?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, it's a public hearing. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and look for a motion and a second.
So motioned.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah,
good.
I mean, I think it has to be done. I
Yeah,
agree that
yeah.
it ultimately
No.
becomes a de facto
The
moratorium.
world has changed since the late 80s, and
A little bit.
I was around then. You, and and there's some background to all of this.
I'm sure. I grew up here. I know what it looked like
Yeah.
way back then.
Yeah. Okay. Jamie, call the roll.
Mr. Dornblaser?
Yes.
Ms. McNermott?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Ritchie? Yes. Chair Savelle?
Yes.
Mr. Salon?
Yes.
And Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Passed 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public requests? Anything at all? Okay. Do we have a director's report?
This should just take about an hour. It's not, no, just kidding. I have no report.
Okay, okay, all right. Anybody on the board have a report? Seeing none, then at 8:06, we are adjourned.